everyone, I'm Simran Khara. I'm the founder and CEO of Koparo Clean. We're a D2C brand in home and hygiene. We make products such as dishwash liquid, laundry detergents, floor cleaners and the like. And our promise is that our products are naturally derived and they are toxin free. So they're very safe to use in your homes, particularly in homes which have kids and pets. I'm a bit of a sort of professional entrepreneur to the extent that I had worked for about 17 years before I actually started up. And I think that is where the startup bug bit me, and I really did want to play a role in building a loved consumer brand in India, and began to toy with various categories. And home cleaning really spoke to me. Like, to me, home cleaning is a very big segment. It's a segment where there is a ton of repeats, right? So you have to wash your dishes 3 times a day, you have to wash your clothes once a day, you have to mop your floors 1 to 2 times a day. So there's an inherent scale and repeatability built into this category, which I found very attractive. And of course, I felt that the incumbents were not doing that much. I think the market has moved from, I'd say, powder to bar to liquid, right? But that's it, right? There's been no further innovation. The early years and the early months were very hard. I still remember how hard we had to work with the first 100 orders and then the first 500 orders. Because here's a category which doesn't really talk to the audience digitally. Cleaning, very rarely would you get like an ad from a Vim or a Surf Excel online, right? So we had to literally write out this playbook. We had to go and find the manufacturers who would be willing to work with formulations which are safer. And before that, let me rewind and tell you, we had to even find reference formulations which we had to import from other countries, to work with labs to say, okay, this is the kind of efficacy I need and this is the kind of safety I need in this formula, right? And we understand that today nothing in the market looks like this, but this is where I want Koparo products to land. There would be periods of doubt. Somebody would say that, Arey, who's going to look at this category? This is such a low involvement category. The buyer and the user are not the same. If the lady of the house is buying the product, but she's not going to experience the product, so how are you going to create a wow moment? And without that, how are you going to make any inroads? So I think every entrepreneur, you go through your sort of moments of wow, you go through those penny drop moments, you figure out what is it, right? Where in the life stage of the consumer are you going to be able to make that inroad? And I think the first year is really about that hit and trial, about who is your customer. Because you will have notions. So like when I began Koparo, I thought it's going to be mums with little toddlers, and they're very paranoid about, कि ज़मीन पे कुछ गिर गया है, बच्चा floor पे crawl कर रहा है, and there may be some, toxic residue on the floor. And therefore we really over-indexed on our floor cleaners. But we actually realized it was our dishwash that was our first product to take off. Because now looking back, we can in hindsight sort of say, okay, yes, of course, kitchen is very sacred in India. This is the first place where you think about premiumizing. You first think about, oh, are there any toxins in my kitchen surfaces or my dishes? This is the first place where the homemaker actually says, I want to make a change. And this is something that you will learn when you launch. Today in year 3, our issue is completely different from that in year 1. In year 1, we could never meet the MOQ, so we would have to make like at least 2 tons of, 2 tons is basically the basic drum size that you have of a contract manufacturer. And 2 tons in 500 ml bottles was a scary math for me to do at that time. I said, what am I going to do with so much stock? Today, of course, we are looking for more and more and more of production line and capacity, because we want to only partner with people who have 5 tons and above, because all my runs have become that much larger. I need people who have much more multi-batch production, capacity. So every stage will throw up a different challenge. As long as you're agile and you're listening both to your vendors and your supply chain partners and your consumers, you'll figure it out, I think home cleaning is a very large category, is established, right? I mean, any report you pick up, you will see that. But I think what is scary for some, but it's very exhilarating for me, is that in this category, you're competing with the likes of a Unilever, a Reckitt, a P&G. And of course, those guys have built businesses over multiple decades, right? Some of them are built over about 100 plus years in our country. So you will on day 1 not have their distribution, and obviously you will not have their SOV. I genuinely feel that a lot is made of this, as to what is the competition. And the reality is you should focus on your own business, on your own USP. And if it is a large market, if it is an attractive market, you will have large competition. Be razor sharp on who's your TG, who's your customer, and how are you going to communicate with them, right? So, for example, I used to work in television earlier, and I know how much secondage, is taken up by some of these large FMCG players. So, it is over many years that they have built the kind of SOB and recall that they have built. In the early years, you will not be able to use some of those mediums, obviously. But you have a different playbook and a different toolkit, which they simply cannot do, right? Which is your digital playbook, which is not about budgets. It's actually about your creative and how you talk and how authentic you are. The way you will bring customers onto your own website or your own app, it's a different storytelling. There will be different strategies that you will employ when you are on an Amazon or a Flipkart, which are the more traditional e-commerce marketplaces. And then quick commerce is a completely different ball game, right? So you do need to think very hard about what are the SKUs, that are going to work across these different channels, and then have a very deliberate and thought out pricing strategy which follows and up your product strategy, and then think about communication. And it's really this trifecta that has to work for you. One thing I'd say is, before you build any sort of plans of marketing, just never do CM to negative channel expansion. It's very tempting, because everybody will tell you, your team will tell you that let's bleed in October and in November we will claw it back, right? और Q2 में ऐसे करते हैं, Q3 में ये कर लेंगे, वो कभी भी ठीक नहीं होगा. Price at a price that you will be able to make money and you have reasonable chance of doing so. Market, of course, you will not every day know where your ROI is going to end up, but at the end of the month you must take stock. And if a channel is not working for you, perhaps that channel isn't going to work for you in the next 3 to 6 months, right? Then you double down on a different channel which works for you, because today these channels are very large. Today it is possible to build 100, 200, 300, even 400 crore business purely on Q-commerce. So if your e-commerce economics isn't stacking up, maybe your bet is Q-com, right? If your D2C economics are amazing but your e-coms are not, then again, go ahead and do that. Every product has a slightly unique characteristic, right? Like in my case, my products are bulky, and my orders can come from anywhere, right? So for me, solving that logistics cost becomes very vital, and beyond a point I can't do it on my own website, and therefore for me the value of an e-com and a Q-com is huge. You will have a different answer. So apply, I would say, first principles thinking on what is that sort of product, in which channel, at what price, and therefore what marketing intensity. So for example, all marketing is not equal. The marketing that I would do on Amazon is obviously much more performance led. It is much more search driven. The marketing I would do on Q-commerce is completely different. I may approach more partnership ads because I want more search to happen for Koparo on a Blinkit or a Zepto or an Instamart. Because that is when conversion will happen, because the consumer who's already opened a 10-minute app probably already knows which cleaning product he or she wants to top up with. At that point, just to run search ads isn't going to give you, amazing results. So it depends, how much long tail traffic do you have, how much generic keyword traffic do you have, how much pure brand traffic does your category have. In some categories, I would imagine, like let's say toothpaste, right? Colgate may be a very high search term, in which case, necessarily bidding for toothpaste may not get you very far, but also bidding on Colgate will certainly also not get you far, because the person's already made up their mind. So the real goal will be about expanding your brand searches and doing a lot of off-platform brand stuff. So the answers will emerge for you, and again, iterate, try something radical in August, right? Try something even more radical in September. Take all of those learnings and then go the whole hog in October. Now, obviously, startup life, is lonely. You're no longer a part of a large company, which was my journey into this, right? So you do need to have like-minded partners. For some of us, these will come in the way of maybe investors. It could also be some contract manufacturers who you end up having very deep strategic relationships with. It will be the folks who are your SPOCs or your category managers, be it an Amazon, be it a QCOM channel. Invest in these relationships. Each of these relationships does something different to you. If you are funded and you do happen to have investors, they obviously have a vantage point of looking at various other companies at the same point in time. They also know what that company was like when they were at your scale. They know that in the next 6-10 months these are the likely challenges you're going to face, so they could give you a heads up. Invest in these relationships. I'm fortunate enough that I have some of the country's best consumer investors on my cap table who have a lot of faith, and who have, I would say, medium-term thinking, which allows you to take a risk, because without risk, there's just no fun in this game. And I would say, even in terms of contract manufacturers now, over the last 3 years, we've built some fantastic relationships. So if there are times when we need to turn things around overnight, these are the partners who will actually lose their own sleep along with you to make sure that you don't go out of stock. I don't like the word contract manufacturer. It just looks and feels so transactional. The reality is that they're my backbone. I am there because they are there and they are backing me up, right? They'll actually give me a call and say कि अरे ये brand launch हुआ है तुमने देखा क्या? अरे ये review आया है तुमने देखा क्या? I wouldn't have seen it, So you need that kind of friendship and that kind of camaraderie in this journey. So if you are, at that point where you are thinking about your own entrepreneurial venture, I think I have just a few pieces of advice, unsolicited entirely. Number one, I think, it's not as glamorous as it is sometimes made out to be, thanks to all the television coverage that we see on Shark Tank and the likes. It's a journey which has very high highs and very low lows. So therefore, I genuinely believe it's not for the faint-hearted, because there will be moments of extreme stress. Even when you are doing extremely well, you are constantly worried about production. So the highs are high and the lows are low, so do it knowing that, right? The second thing is, do a ton of research and conversations before you start, so that you have that conviction, right? And think about your differentiation, because one thing is there today, entry barriers across the board, right? Other than building maybe large tech platforms, entry barriers are very, very low. And therefore you will launch, and in the same 8-10 weeks you will see 4 more people have launched with very similar ideas. So think a little bit about your differentiation. For us at Koparo, it was about having our own formulations, right? So no matter what happens, I know what my product has, I know its strength, and therefore we have perhaps the best repeat rates amongst our immediate competition. Thirdly, you're going to have to get your hands dirty. To think that, let's say you've picked up some funding, so therefore you'll hire people. Yes, you will hire people, but delegation will not happen for very many years. In the early years, you will have to do a lot of work on your own. So no work is too small for a founder, right? Just no work at all. I'm not even going to tell you the kind of things that I do in a day, but it's fine, because I'm doing it for Koparo and I know why I'm doing it. But for example, I think all founders should spend a day in customer service, right? Once a week if they can, and otherwise if they can't, then maybe once a fortnight. Some of these things will be very different from your previous corporate experience, or let's say even if you've done an MBA or a BCom or whatever, you'll be really like, this is what I signed up for. It's true, that's exactly what you signed up for. And the payoffs are there, but they're not immediate. So if you're looking for the hit that you get with your end of year bonus when you are working in a corporate, it's not going to be like that. If you are very fortunate, you may make some wealth in 5 years, right? Maybe 10, and you may not make it at all. And the last thing that I get often asked is that, you're a woman entrepreneur, and any advice that you have for women entrepreneurs, or how do you balance your work life? And I'd say that the most liberating thing that a mom can do is to have her own startup. It is 100% control over your own schedule. It's flexibility imagined at a completely different level. So for me, it's been hugely gratifying and satisfying. I am available to my child and my home whenever I need to be, And I think if I was working in a large corporate, attending 4-hour-long, meetings, doing reviews and doing offsites, I would fully go crazy. So I know this is a bit counterintuitive, because you think that, working woman life is hard enough, and then you want to be a startup founder. Isn't that worse in some way? But to be honest, if you're solving for flexibility, it's the best answer. Of course, there are other nuances, right? Like how much money you're going to make in a corporate versus a startup. 100% you're going to make more money in corporate, but you will have more control here. You cannot always time it perfectly, So for example, I started Koparo when Meera was about 5, my daughter. But some people start when they don't have kids, some people have kids while they're here. So there's no one answer, I feel. But the one thing a startup does is it empowers you and your calendar wholly and completely. You are in charge. And I know that as mothers, that is something that we really do need, right? Because if Meera has fever, I don't want to be asking for any approval. I know I just have to stop what I'm doing here and be home at that point in time. And it's fine, because I'll pick up my work the next day. So it's hugely empowering. I think my only advice to you is that don't be boxed in to say that, oh my God, like I've got this huge change in my life, I've got a kid, and therefore maybe I should put off being a startup founder. No such thing. I mean, most women founders I know are very easily able to balance this out. So will you. I think we live in a country, we are blessed with so much support, whether it is family or it is paid support. And so just go for it, just do not be shackled by this. The world is ready for you. You are ready for the world. Just go for it.